My name is Morgan Drake. I'm 33 years old, and last Friday I got fired from DataLoom Systems. They spelled my name wrong on the termination paperwork. It was Drake with an E at the end, not Drac. That's how the story ends, or how they thought it would. But before the elevator ride of shame and the cold clipboard of Jessica from HR, I had a badge, a nameplate, and a server rack under my desk that buzzed like a second heartbeat. I also had an ulcer shaped suspiciously like our company logo. Swear to God my GI doctor even laughed when he saw the scan. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me your city and the local time right now in the comments. I want to know who's staying up late with me tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I come from a family where we were taught to smile through everything. My mother wore pearls to parent-teacher conferences like they were red carpet events. My dad only ever talked about feelings after 3 scotches, and even then, only if the Bears were losing. On the surface, we were picture perfect. Underneath, pressure cookers. It made me good at hiding things, stress mistakes, panic. It also made me allergic to being seen, which worked out perfectly at DataLoom. I was the CRM architect nobody noticed until something broke, and then it was suddenly all eyes on me. Reliable, invisible, blamed for everything. I kept the spaghetti-coated client relationship platform duct-taped together while the execs smiled on investor calls and paraded through town halls like TED Talk messiahs. The irony, I believed in what we were building. I liked the clients. I liked making systems talk to each other. It gave me control, predictability, things my childhood never did. So I swallowed the ulcer and worked 12-hour days patching Zach Holt's screw-ups and filtering salespeople's half-lies into numbers that made sense. It started unraveling on a Monday. The air smelled like burnt coffee and toner ink. My inbox looked like a landfill fire meeting requests, panicked questions, 3 reply-alls from someone who shouldn't have admin access. Slack was pinging like a slot machine having a seizure. And then, of course, there was Zach, the new CMO. Picture this 38 bleach-white teeth-man bun Patagonia vest. The kind of guy who says pivot unironically and thinks leadership means pointing at charts with enthusiasm. In his second week, he tried to optimize the sales pipeline by deleting 5 custom CRM fields I spent 3 months building. I confronted him once politely. I said, Zach, just so you know, removing the lifecycle tags from Medaxis is going to mess with their conversion metrics. He looked up from his standing desk and said, I kid you not, I like clean views. Too many labels gives the illusion of confusion. I stared at him like he'd just said gravity was optional. But I nodded. Because you learn in places like DataLoom that reason gets you nowhere. Documentation, though, that gets you survival. So I started recording things. Quietly. I didn't know it yet, but the breadcrumbs had already begun to trail behind him, and I had just picked up the first one. Zach Holt was the kind of executive who saw a dashboard and thought, this should be prettier, not this should be accurate. He didn't understand systems. He didn't want to. He wanted stories, optics, and a clean interface that looked good in board meetings, even if the data underneath it was hollow. The first time I saw him drag and drop a client account stage in real time during a live demo, I flinched like someone had kicked a puppy. It wasn't just the deletes. It was the overwrites. He'd rename critical fields like deal velocity to progress vibes. I wish I were exaggerating. He treated our Salesforce instance like Canva. Bright colors, fewer buttons, more vibes. And it was always the same kind of mess. He'd show off to investors or directors with a streamlined report, then vanish right after leaving me to find out that none of our automations fired deal stages broke, and the German logistics client was now receiving onboarding emails in French. I kept fixing it, quietly, because that's what I did. Then something new happened, something worse. 3 times in 1 week, the lifecycle status for Medaxis Biosolutions. The crown jewel client, the one that made up 40% of our total revenue, had been rolled back from closed won to evaluation. Not once. 3 times. No user notes, no support tickets. No one on our team had logged the change. It was like someone had time-traveled and erased the future. I felt it in my gut first. That sick squirm. Because I'd built the Medaxis framework myself. It wasn't just any client setup. It was 12 custom triggers, regionally segmented permissions, and a cascade logic so clean it practically ran itself. This wasn't a bug. This wasn't a sync issue. This was sabotage, or more likely stupidity, disguised as leadership optimization. I flagged it in Slack, posted a screenshot to the Naleo ERM Integrity channel, pinged Lynn, my manager, and asked any chance this rollback was approved. Lynn replied an hour later, could be a sync error. Or Zach maybe just decluttered. Decluttered. That word stuck in my throat like a bone. That night, I didn't sleep. I rewrote the audit script I used during testing to track field changes by user ID and timestamp. It pulled the logs, filtered them, and dumped the changes to a private folder on my encrypted local server at home. I named the script contingencies.ch alpha.py. Not dramatic, just factual. I wasn't planning anything. Not then. I just had a hunch. A little whisper behind my right ear that said something's coming. Zach had touched something sacred data. Not just numbers, but the relationship DNA that made our clients trust us. And if he could erase one deal stage, what else could he make disappear? You know, the worst part, people were starting to believe him. They'd repeat his jargon in meetings, streamlining data flows, simplifying access points, minimizing field pollution. It was garbage. All of it. But garbage in a suit still sells, especially if it's smiling. And so, I became what I'd always been, the cleanup crew. Only this time I was watching. And this time, I was saving the mess. It was a Tuesday, when everything hit the fan. You know the kind where you wake up already late, spill coffee on your only clean button-down, and get to work just in time to be blamed for something you didn't even know happened yet. The pitch was at 9:30 a.m. sharp. Medaxis was supposed to be the centerpiece of our Q4 investor deck, the account that validated Zach's entire reign of disaster. The client pipeline projections, lifecycle reports, all wrapped up in a shiny bow of fabricated success. Except that morning, none of it was there. I knew something was wrong the moment Slack started sounding like a fire alarm. Lynn messaged me, "Hey, need you in Conf B now, Medaxis issue." No context, no warning. Just one of those dead-eyed pings that spells disaster. By the time I reached the room, Zach was already there, pacing in front of the giant touchscreen monitor with that wired energy of someone trying to stay 3 steps ahead of blame. Lynn sat with her arms crossed. Jessica from HR hovered like an AI bot made of perfume and awkward silences. Zach opened his mouth and hit me with the fake concern tone I'd come to hate. "Morgan, walk us through the Medaxis rollback. You were the last one with edit access to the module, right?" I blinked. Once. "No, I haven't touched that module since early Q3. You removed the audit trail plugin 2 weeks ago, remember? Said it was slowing down performance." He smiled like a lizard in a Patagonia vest. "Let's not get defensive." I wanted to throw a chair through the window. Jessica jumped in with her HR issue tone. "We're just trying to understand what happened. No one's pointing fingers." "You literally just did," I said, flat as drywall. "You pulled me into a room with no documentation, no ticket history, and 3 people asking about a problem I didn't cause. And that's when I felt it. That shift. You know, the one when the room stops being about solving anything and starts being about assigning the fall. I went quiet. Because something in me clicked into place. Not fear, not even anger. Just this cold, weightless clarity. They were going to make me the problem. The scapegoat. The cleanup girl now recast as saboteur. I stood. Zach looked startled. "Maybe take the rest of the day. We'll circle back. Translation, we're firing you. We just need legal to finish the paperwork." I walked back to my desk like I was already a ghost. Packed up my cactus, my coffee mug, my secondhand ergonomic mouse. Logged out of my work account. Then I went home. And that night, in the quiet buzz of my apartment, I opened my terminal window, pulled up contingency alpha.py, and checked the execution log. Nothing fancy, just a trigger, a dead man's switch. The script was set to activate automatically if my user ID was deleted from the admin console. If they tried to erase me from the system, it would export every record I'd ever touched, metadata emails, field logs, and time-stamped revisions, and send it encrypted to my private server. I hadn't built it for revenge. I built it because I'd worked in places like this long enough to know no one saves the truth. Not unless you build something that does. They always do it on a Friday. That's the day for clean exits. Fewer people around. HR can pretend it's routine. The break room still has stale donuts. Nobody asks questions when someone's badge stops working over the weekend. It was 3:43 p.m. when the calendar ping hit. Subject HR check-in. No explanation, no attachments. Just that sterile please confirm attendance timestamp like a summons from a ghost. Jessica Barron was already waiting by the elevator when I got there, clipboard in one hand. Her face arranged into that neutral HR mask, sympathetic lips, dead eyes. She didn't say a word, just hit the button and kept staring at the door like it might save her from having to be human. The office they took me to wasn't even one we used for client meetings. No windows, just a folding chair and a table that smelled like printer ink and old takeout. Zach was already inside. Lynn, too, arms crossed, eyes red-rimmed but dry. It hit me that moment this wasn't about process. This was theater. I was the villain in the final act. Jessica cleared her throat. Based on findings from a recent compliance review, your actions have been determined to meet the threshold for gross negligence. I opened my mouth, but she kept talking. This decision is final. Your access will be revoked immediately. You'll be escorted from the premises for security reasons. For security reasons. I wasn't a threat. I was a threat to them. Sure, but not in the way they were pretending. I wasn't the unstable employee. I was the inconvenient witness. I could have spoken. I could have dropped the whole archive right then, opened my laptop, pulled the receipts. But something in me whispered not yet. Instead, I stood, walked out. At the badge scanner in the hallway, my card blinked red. Access denied. In the elevator, my Slack icon went gray on Lynn's laptop. They were scrubbing me in real time like a bad update. When I hit the lobby, it was like I'd never existed. And then, back at my apartment, a soft whir beneath my desk told me the real story had started. The script had run. The dead man's switch had triggered. While I stood in that tiny room, taking corporate bullets, the system I built was quietly spinning to life. Encrypted exports. Every client record I'd ever touched. Every update I ever logged. Every Medaxis revision. All of it packed tight and shipped to my private server like seeds before a flood. They thought they were erasing me. What they didn't know was they had just launched me. I hadn't hacked anything. I hadn't stolen. I preserved. My work, my structure, my proof. And outside, the rain was starting. I stood in it with a cardboard box full of office detritus, my cactus, drooping, my world's okayest employee mug cracked on one corner. A USB drive I didn't need anymore tucked in my coat pocket. I looked up at the glass facade of DataLoom and watched the water distort my reflection until I barely recognized myself. Good. Let them think I'm gone. Because the next time they hear my name, it won't be in an HR memo. It'll be from their clients. The first day didn't feel like anything. Not rage. Not freedom. Just static. I sat on the floor of my apartment, legs numb back against the wall, still wearing the blouse I'd sweat through during the termination. My work laptop sat untouched in the corner. The cactus from my desk leaned sideways on the windowsill like it too had been fired and didn't know what to do next. I ate pad thai straight from the takeout box with a plastic fork. Didn't even warm it up. Just kept chewing like if I stopped something worse might fill my mouth. I thought getting fired would come with some kind of cinematic breakdown. Crying, screaming, glass shattering. But it didn't. It just felt like I'd been hollowed out. Like someone had deleted my user ID from the inside. I kept hearing the sound the badge scanner made, beep then red. That rejection. That cold mechanical finality. Over and over in my head. Like a notification I couldn't dismiss. On the second day, I showered. That was the big event. I stood under the hot water until the mirror fogged and the grout between the tiles started to loosen. When I got out, I wiped my reflection away and stared at what was left. Morgan Drake terminated. I didn't even know who to call. My mom would make it about herself. My dad would tell me to sue someone even though he's never met a lawyer in his life. Friends I had a few, but they were the kind of friends you get when you work 12-hour days driftwood in a tide close until the waves change direction. On the third day, I finally opened my laptop. The screen glowed like an open wound. Familiar, accusing. I logged into my private server. Typed the command to open the encrypted archive. Watched the directories unfold like little time capsules. Client logs, field revisions. Deleted audit trails, lifecycle exceptions, Zachary Holt. modified fields.csv. It was all there, untouched, clean, not a revenge file, a resurrection. And that's when I felt something shift. Not anger, not pride. Something colder, something surgical, a quiet understanding. They hadn't just fired me. They'd tried to erase me. Erased my name from client accounts, scrubbed my credentials, made my presence in their systems vanish like a ghost they never believed in. But ghosts don't forget. Ghosts keep receipts. I sat there in the dark, with only the glow of the server fan and the muted TV, cycling through late-night cooking shows. Gordon Ramsay yelling at undercooked scallops, while I stared at a line of code I'd written 4 months ago. I didn't laugh, I didn't smile, but my fingers started to move. One script, one email, one client, one breadcrumb. And for the first time since that badge scanner blinked red, I felt something that almost tasted like power. The thing about CRM systems is they're not just databases, they're relationship diaries. Little digital trails of every deal made every mistake corrected at midnight. Every client who ever said, "Can you just jump on a quick call," while panicking in a hotel lobby. And I remembered them all. Not in the creepy way. In the I gave a damn way. These clients weren't just revenue columns to me. They were people, teams. Frantic voices on the other end of a Zoom line when a dashboard crashed 5 minutes before a board review. I remembered their quirks. I remembered their pain points. I remembered what mattered to them even when no one else at DataLoom did. So I started small. Just a few outreach emails. Casual, no pitch, no desperation. Just, "Hey, how's Q1 shaping up? Let me know if you need anything. Hope the new CRM managers got your dashboards humming again." I didn't attach files. I didn't mention what happened. I didn't need to. The first reply came from a software firm in Denver. I'd helped them rebuild a broken lead scoring system 2 years ago after their pipeline collapsed mid-campaign. Their COO replied with, "Wait, you're not at DataLoom anymore. Explains a lot. Are you consulting?" 6 words. That's all it took. "Yes, I am." Quietly, I hit send. Felt like a match had been lit in a dark room. Then came the biotech startup. Their new account manager had missed 3 meetings and sent them a pricing proposal that referenced features they didn't even use. "You always gave it to us straight," their VP of Ops wrote. "Let's catch up." I added her to a spreadsheet titled Active Leads. Created a folder Client 0A1 on Biotech. Didn't smile, didn't cheer. Just kept going. I set up a basic LLC in Illinois, Drake Ops Consulting. No website, no branding, just a Gmail and a Calendly. My lawyer, Erica Vaughn, helped me draft clean contracts. Straightforward, enforceable, ethical. I wasn't promising the world. I was offering clarity. No fluff, no handoffs, just results. That's when things started happening faster. One client forwarded my info to another, then another. People remembered. Not just my name, but how I made them feel safe when systems failed. And while I quietly built a new version of myself out of the ashes they left me in, I started tracking DataLoom's LinkedIn activity. Not obsessively, just enough. Their posts got vaguer, excited for the journey ahead, celebrating innovation in client partnerships. No names, no metrics, just noise. You could feel the rot under the polish. Meanwhile, my server hummed. My client list grew. And every time someone said, "You remembered our data better than they did," I added a note to my private log. The system remembers. It came in like a ghost, no subject line, just the sender Denise Rourke, VP of Operations, Medaxis Biosolutions. The client. The one. The account that carried DataLoom on its back for 3 fiscal years. The account I built with my own blood sweat and custom field logic. Her message was simple. "Would you be open to a brief consult? Discretion appreciated." I stared at it for a full minute before even breathing. Denise wasn't chatty. She wasn't sentimental. She was exacting. The kind of exec who once corrected our legal team's footer language on a renewal doc in real time, and was right. If she was reaching out, it wasn't a social call. I replied within 6 minutes. Not too fast, not too eager, just enough. Of course, when works for you. 2 days later, we met on Zoom. I wore a black crew neck and didn't bother with makeup. She wore her usual gray blazer hair, pulled back eyes the same sharp surgical blue I remembered from 3 straight product roadmap scrums. Her background was different, though. No office, no glass walls, just a plain white wall behind her. Her face looked tired in a new way. Not exhausted, depleted. Like she'd been shielding her team from a storm and lost her umbrella halfway through. "I'll be blunt," she said. "We've lost visibility into performance reporting. Your replacement keeps redirecting questions, and no one seems to understand the original CRM configuration." I nodded, didn't say anything. Denise leaned forward. "Contract's up for renewal in 3 weeks. I need to know if a rebuild is even possible." I clicked over to a folder already labeled Client C1 Su Medaxis. I'd been preparing it since the day they let me go. I wasn't arrogant, I was prepared. Because if they didn't come to me, I knew they'd need us to eventually. "I've drafted a continuity plan," I said. "Not a rebuild. A restoration. Everything I architected, permissions alerts, life cycle triggers, it's intact. I can replicate it independently, securely." She didn't blink, just said send it. The proposal wasn't fancy. No flashy fonts, no Canva decks, just clarity. Operational continuity and intelligence restoration Medaxis. 5 pages, bullet-pointed, structured like a scalpel. Audit controls, territory logic, alert flows. All the things Zach thought he could delete without consequence. She read in silence. I watched her eyebrows twitch just slightly when she saw the call frequency triggers I'd buried 3 layers deep in their conversion pipeline. Things she'd forgotten existed. Things only I could have known to recreate. "Can you onboard before the 20th, she asked. "Yes. Keep it quiet for now." "Of course." 3 hours later, I had the signed engagement. Denise CC'd no one. I opened my spreadsheet, added a row. Client 02 Medaxis, active. No champagne, no celebration, just a breath. And then a small whisper in the back of my skull. "They're starting to fall." I didn't have to look hard to see it. The cracks were everywhere. You don't lose Medaxis and come away whole. They were DataLoom's spine. Once they pulled out, the whole skeleton started to sag. The first clue came from a recruiter I'd worked with once during a rough patch years ago. She messaged me out of the blue. "Hey, DataLoom's bleeding senior staff, you looking?" I wasn't, but I asked questions. Turns out 2 client success managers had quit within the same week. A junior data engineer left a Slack status that just said "finally free" before disappearing completely. And the kicker, Zach posted a vague inspirational quote on LinkedIn. "Resilience is not about never falling, it's about learning how to stand back up." Growth mindset, leadership, which is executive speak for everything is on fire, but please clap. Meanwhile, I onboarded Medaxis like I'd never left. Set up a fresh CRM instance, encrypted compliant. Walked their internal team through the workflows like I was brushing dust off old blueprints. It felt effortless, familiar, intimate even. One of their reps messaged me after I recreated their stalled deal alert system. I didn't realize how much we were missing until it came back. That hit me in the ribs a little. Not because I needed the validation, but because it reminded me what this had been about all along. Not revenge. Restoration. Still, the noise from DataLoom got louder. Jessica from HR, remember her peach-scented doom in a pantsuit, sent me a letter. Or rather, their legal team did. A crisp 3-page cease and desist on fancy letterhead, claiming I was in unauthorized possession of proprietary materials. I sat with it for a while, let it steep like bad tea. Then I called Erica Vaughn, my lawyer. She reviewed it, flipped through my documentation, looked at the script, the server, the audit logs. Said they're panicking. This isn't a legal move. It's a scare tactic. I asked, "So what do we do?" She smiled through the screen. "We keep going. You haven't broken a single line of law. You just remembered better than they did." I started tagging client folders. Organizing. Medaxis was now live. The Denver firm had signed a retainer. The biotech company was onboarding in 2 weeks. Each one wasn't just a client. It was another pixel of the picture, forming a picture Zach and his rebranded PowerPoints couldn't erase. Inside DataLoom chaos had started to leak. A former colleague sent me a screen grab from an internal Slack thread, someone asking where the Rourke reporting logic went. No one answered. Then a message was deleted. I sipped my tea, mint no sugar. In my client tracker, I added a note under Medaxis. Said yes. Quiet but certain. DataLoom was hemorrhaging trust. Revenue would follow. And me, I didn't gloat, I documented, because I knew what was coming next. It landed in my inbox with the subject line, "Thought you'd find this interesting." Attached were screenshots. Internal emails, not from just anyone, these were from C-levels, forwarded by someone I didn't know well, but who knew me well enough to trust that I'd understand what to do with them. The first one was from Zach. "We need full visibility on which clients have spoken to her. I want a list by EOD. Everhart's gone now. 2 smaller accounts are ghosting us. Why is she talking to our clients? No name, just her. Like I was Voldemort with a Gmail address." Another exec replied, "She should have never had that level of access in the first place. Who approved the export protocols?" Then legal chimed in, pushing too hard risks, making her look like the victim. There's chatter on LinkedIn and Reddit. We advise a low profile. I read the entire thread twice. They were unraveling. Not because I'd breached anything, not because I'd hacked a thing, but because they'd finally realized something I had known from the beginning. I didn't make the fire. I just stopped holding the hose. They scrubbed me from the system. And in doing so, they triggered the one thing they couldn't spin my work. The logs, the timelines. The system I had built for them buried underneath Zach's Canva-colored redesigns and Lynn's dusty indifference. And now that the clients were leaving, they couldn't explain why. Couldn't explain how Medaxis restored 6 quarters of predictive insights in 10 days. Couldn't explain why small accounts trusted me with their end-of-year forecasts, while DataLoom kept resending the same broken report with a new header. They couldn't explain me, so they erased me. And now I was the gap in their story that made everything fall apart. It felt strange, not victorious, just inevitable. Like gravity, like justice that took its sweet time. I stared at my laptop screen email open cursor blinking. I thought about replying to Zach's frantic inquiry thread with a single sentence. "You fired the wrong architect." But I didn't. I let the silence do the talking. Because silence from someone like me, who used to answer every late-night ping, who used to save their asses with 3 lines of code and a workaround call at 11:52 p.m., that silence says everything. I leaned back in my chair, stared out the window. Snow had started to fall in Chicago. Quiet, clean, no ceremony. In my spreadsheet, I added a timestamp next to Medaxis. Client 0 and 2 active. Contract renewed. Leak confirmed. There's something wild about watching your past panic while your future calmly opens the door. I didn't light the match, but I was starting to enjoy the warmth. The email came on a Tuesday. I didn't find it right away. It got buried beneath a string of onboarding confirmations, a vendor invoice, and a reminder from Erica about our next quarterly compliance review. It was an alert from a tech industry newswire I'd forgotten I subscribed to. Breaking DataLoom Systems acquired in private sale. Sources cite client churn and internal instability. I clicked. The article was brief. No quotes. No financials. Just that sterile autopsy tone reserved for companies that quietly implode. An overseas consultancy had absorbed them. Staff would be evaluated on a rolling basis. Transition planning was underway. Translation fire sale, skeleton crew, 0 survivors. Zach's name was gone from the site. Jessica's LinkedIn said she was taking time for personal growth. Lynn didn't post anything at all. I didn't feel glee. Not exactly. I just exhaled long and slow like I'd been holding it for months. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like gravity had done its job. I was on a Zoom call with 2 new clients when I saw it. A mid-sized nonprofit in Minneapolis and a logistics firm from Austin, both referred by previous clients who remembered what I'd built and how I treated them. We were talking through timelines when I switched tabs and refreshed the newsfeed. The acquisition headline was at the top, now trending locally. The ripple had reached the shoreline. I muted myself, took a sip of tea chamomile this time, and let the warmth settle behind my teeth. One of the clients said, "Honestly, we're just relieved to work with someone who gives us straight answers." I smiled. That's the idea. Later that night, I sat alone with my laptop open, staring at the spreadsheet that had grown from 3 rows to 21. The tabs were color-coded. The folders labeled. The server backed up twice, synced to cloud and local. I'd built something again, but this time it belonged to me. There was no press release, no revenge blog, no viral Reddit thread. Just quiet competency, doing what chaos never could rebuild. And in the end, they weren't destroyed because I attacked. They collapsed because they fired the only person who knew how their system actually worked. I didn't torch the house, I just left the door open. And they ran back in with a match. We all have stories like this, don't we? Moments when we were blamed for someone else's mess, silenced for telling the truth, erased like a spreadsheet error no one wants to own. If you've ever been scapegoated, ever rebuilt yourself in the quiet after betrayal, tell me in the comments, what did they take from you? And what did you take back? Like this story, hit the like button. Subscribe if you want more. Or share it with someone who needs to hear that survival can be soft, strategic, and silently powerful. They thought they buried me, but I wasn't a corpse, I was a seed. Thank you for listening. Really.